Hello peeps, Struggle here, and today we are talking about everything concerning turrets. So first question, what is a turret? Roughly described, a turret is an armed, AI-controlled docked entity that is given a specific task or group of target it should deal with. Let us have a look at such a Bobby AI module. We first are going to tell that it is a turret. We won't need it active, and here we are specifying what the turret then should shoot at. Okay, so aim at any means aim at any hostile target. Select a target. This basically means if the turret is part of a ship or station and you are controlling the station or the ship, and the ship has a target of its own acquired, then the turret will take the same target as theirs and also open fire on it. It does not care if the target is hostile. This will also shoot friendlies, and anything you select, the turret will fire upon. So be careful with this setting. Turrets could also aim at missiles. You know, those swirly things which roam the skies? Right, turrets take them down. Turrets could also be set to deal with hostile astronauts. Turrets are able to take their entire required power out of its host entity, and also they are forwarding their damage toward the host. As long as the host has 50% of its shields, it can then basically trade the turret's damage for its shields. Okay. So, how to build them? So to build turrets, we need to build them in a way that they are able to cover a big view area where, from whichever angle the enemy comes from, they could shoot at. So how to do that? We do that by docking entities on rail turret axis blocks. Those are special rail blocks which can't be exchanged into others by logic, and also others can't be changed into them by logic. And basically they provide a pivot point. In order to have the turret basically freely look everywhere, we need two pivot points. One provides basically this axis of movement, like the left and right. There we go. And now we can turn left and right. And the other movement type we need is still up and down. So we use this pivot point to dock then the second turret entity to the first turret entity. The first being called turret body, and the second, which also has the AI module, is called turret barrel. Before we dock this thing, I'd like to point out that it really helps if you ensure that the arrows on those dockers and also on the rail dockers always point the same direction. Yeah, let's dock this thing. There we go. Now this is docked, and we can go like up, down, left, right, you see. Well, you might be wondering, what could we do with such a small turret, right? Well, anti-missile turrets are small. This, for example, is the smallest I use on some of my ships. And you see a pretty nice concept here already, that the turret body, this entity, takes care of power and shielding, whereas the turret barrel uses all its weight for the guns. Alright, how about we replicate this, right? So we are hopping inside here, and we need some power and we need some shielding, like that. And then we hop into the other entity and we give it some guns that can actually destroy missiles. The only thing that can destroy missiles are cannons, those antimatter cannons. So if you are not familiar with building weapon systems, you maybe should check out the playlist, because there are tutorials about that as well. Also, what we are doing right now, we are building a cannon system, basically master slave, to create a rapid fire effect. Rapid firing cannons, this is the master computer. It has its 2 gun parts here. This is a slave. I put those 2 gun parts here. And then I also added this color block to the master gun. We can turn this off. And now when we hop in there, we can see that? We want the cannons to be rapid fire cannons because the AI needs to aim ahead of the missile and it's not very precise with that. So the more often we shoot, the more chances we get to actually take down the missile. Alright, we could of course also use this turret to shoot on astronauts. Works perfectly well. Anti-missile turrets against astronauts do a really good job. Now, to something bigger. This would be something you would classify as please shoot at anything hostile. The idea behind this design is to save weight. Well, actually, no, to use up the weight, the pivot point, or the turret axis block within the turret body provides. Why is that important? Well, those mass enhancers, for example, let's say this is a ship, they only support the turret axis blocks or the rails of its own entity. Most likely, you will have a few of those just for decoration purposes somewhere, for example, as air vents and stuff like that. Well, this is what I use them often for. So, most likely your ship or station will be able to support even like something really big, okay? But problem is that the turret body, which is this little thing here, has to be able to carry the turret barrel, which is the big part up there. So the turret body has to produce the power to power those. They require power, right? And also it has to have lots of those mass enhancers to actually be able to carry this big mass on top. This design here tries to put as much turret into the barrel as the free 50 mass of this turret axis block provide. So the idea is, well, how about we shield the turret barrel with the body, like this big casing around here, and the turret barrel only has to shield this one block stripe here, because all other systems are protected by the turret body's shield already. Now let's have a quick look at the weapon systems of this thing. You see the secondary effect is not 100%. This is because we want this thing to actually really deal damage, right? And if we lower the frequency of this thing firing, we increase the damage per shot. And with the increased damage per shot, we also increase the depth of the penetration effect. So this thing penetrates like 4 blocks deep. This means, like, if we, for example, fire at just an enemy ship, it could destroy 4 systems deep with a single shot. That's better than just throwing needles at an enemy. Okay, now this is the last type of turret I'd like to talk to you. This is basically a missile turret. When we look inside, we can see that, well, I turned it down here, right? The front of the turret is now facing downwards. And those missiles are facing in another direction. They are basically launching in that direction instead of where the turret is facing. This only works because those are lock-on missiles, like missile, beam, and then a tertiary effect. Beam and pulse have lock-on effects. They can make the missiles go in an arc from your ship, like upwards, and then they basically bend over and then they just are heading for the target with, you know, making a curve. You see here, this is the missile exhaust thing. The important thing about this turret here is one design aspect that basically forces this missile to not being able to go any further than such, which basically means that in any case the turret is not able to shoot at its body, right, the turret barrel, because it just was built in a way that it could only move or turn this far. I use these slabs here and this block on the turret barrel to basically limit the turret's movement. This of course will cause collision detection thingies, but we really don't want this missile to shoot. If it is not able to aim at the target, then it better does not shoot at all than shooting at its own turret body. About weapon systems here, As I already said, lock-on missile. I prefer beam over the pulse because beam gives the missile speed, lots of speed. And this speed is required especially if you want to catch something fighter-sized with over, the speed effect, because those ships can get really, really fast. Using pulse means you even would reduce the speed. Even a big freighter can outrun slow missile pulse missiles. This also increases range. Not so much the reload time, but that's okay. So every 45 seconds this thing will fire, and every time it fires, this missile requires 729,000 energy. So this number has to be available as soon as the 45 seconds are up and the missile tries to shoot again. Now we could take the power from the ship, because most likely the ship will have big power storage anyway. But we don't want to drain the power from our ship without giving it back. So either we could store the power in our turret body, or we could produce the power, and while the turret is basically reloading, we could transfer the power the turret body is producing to the ship, and the moment the turret barrel requires it to fire, it could pull everything back out of the ship. Actually, we could support the ship with a bit more power than we need every 45 seconds. This requires still less blocks transferring and producing and transferring the power to the ship than actually trying to produce and store the power in the turret body. So to keep weight low, producing and transferring, I figured, is the better solution. Okay. This basically concludes this turret tutorial. I hope you learned a lot. If you still have questions, leave them in the comments. If somebody has questions or ask about turrets in the future, I hope you will remember this tutorial. So thanks for watching. Please leave a like if you liked it, and see you guys next time. Bye guys.